Copts are a Christian ethno-religious group indigenous to North Africa who have primarily inhabited the area of modern Egypt and Sudan since antiquity. They are the largest Christian denomination in Egypt and the Middle East, as well as in Sudan and Libya. Copts in Egypt account for roughly 5 to 15% of the Egyptian population. Copts in Sudan account for 1% of the Sudanese population, while Copts in Libya similarly account for 1% of the Libyan population. Could they be direct descendants of ancient Egyptians? Continue watching to find out. Let's start with their genetics. Copts are the descendants of pre-Islamic Egyptians. When Egyptian Muslims later ceased to call themselves by the demonym, the term became the distinctive name of the Christian minority. According to Y-DNA analysis by Hassan et al. 2008, around 45% of Copts in Sudan carry the haplogroup J. The remainder mainly belong to the E1b1b clade, 21%. Both paternal lineages are common among other local Afroasiatic-speaking populations, Beja, Ethiopians, Sudanese Arabs, as well as the Nubians. E1b1b E3b reaches its highest frequencies among North Africans, Levantine Middle Easterners, and Ethiopid East Africans. The next most common haplogroups borne by Copts in Sudan are the European-linked R1b clade, 15%, as well as the archaic African B lineage, 15%. A 2015 study by Borne et al. Identified an ancestral autosomal component of Western Eurasian origin that is common to many modern Afroasiatic-speaking populations in Northeast Africa. Known as the Coptic component, it peaks among Egyptian Copts who settled in Sudan over the past 2 centuries. They also associate the Coptic component with ancient Egyptian ancestry, without the later Arabian influence that is present among other Egyptians. Holfelder et al. 2017 analyzed various populations in Sudan and observed that Sudanese Copts have remained relatively isolated since their arrival to Sudan, with only low levels of admixture with local northeastern Sudanese groups. This could mean that Sudanese Copts are genetically closest to the ancient Egyptians due to the limited admixture with Arabs. Another piece of evidence to link them to ancient Egyptians is the language. Copts have historically spoken the Coptic language, a direct descendant of the Demotic Egyptian that was spoken in late antiquity. The Coptic language is the most recent stage of the Egyptian language. Coptic remained the spoken language of most Egyptians until it was slowly replaced by colloquial Egyptian Arabic in Lower Egypt and Saidi Arabic in Upper Egypt by the end of the 17th century. Although it may have survived in isolated pockets for a little longer. Today Coptic is extinct, but it is still the liturgical language of the native Egyptian churches, the Coptic Orthodox Church and the Coptic Catholic Church. It is taught worldwide in many prestigious institutions, but its teaching within Egypt remains limited.
East gent met schai it web it hini join irpewi shat met schai nerimin kemi khin yakhum patin weinin nimshash fin shol he volchen met schai na pas nari nerimin kemi saji into aspin mei shantu shino we kemi engineerabius minensa puvots obe niromius inyept minensa hamishin rompi an nerimin kemi irpobshin tu aspi wat mit arabes shibiumus Impo khinkemi tiaspin nerimin kemi on khin eklesia mawatu et bepijo mitwab ifskheo khinti mitremin kemi wa sharin ni cristiano shlelen khits pimesh nerimin kemi tinuka ti aneti aspi enti nu genioti one end of handromi e wash itastomos khinkemi ters.
Did you know Copts are one of the most discriminated groups in the world? Religious freedom in Egypt is hampered to varying degrees by discriminatory and restrictive government policies. Coptic Christians, being the largest religious minority in Egypt, are also negatively affected. Copts have faced increasing marginalization after the 1952 coup d'etat led by Gamal Abdel Nasser. Until recently, Christians were required to obtain presidential approval for even minor repairs in churches. These restrictions do not apply for building mosques. Copts face ethnic and racial discrimination, as they are called, admazaka or blue bone, by racists in Egypt. The Coptic community has been targeted by hate crimes by Islamic extremists. The most significant was the 2001 El Kosher attacks, in which Muslims and Christians were involved in bloody interreligious clashes following a dispute between a Muslim and a Christian. 20 Christians and 1 Muslim were killed after violence broke out in the town of El Kosher, 440 kilometers south of Cairo. In February 2001, a new Coptic church and 35 houses belonging to Christians were burned. In 2006, one person attacked 3 churches in Alexandria, killing 1 person and injuring 16. The attacker was not linked to any organization and described as psychologically disturbed by the Ministry of Interior. In May 2010, the Wall Street Journal reported increasing waves of mob attacks by Muslims against Copts. Despite frantic calls for help, the police typically arrived after the violence was over. The police also coerced the Copts to accept reconciliation with their attackers to avoid prosecuting them, with no Muslims convicted for any of the attacks. In Masamatru, a Bedouin mob of Muslims tried to attack Copts, with 400 Copts having to barricade themselves in their church. In August 2013, following the 3 July 2013 coup and clashes between the military and Morsi supporters, there were widespread attacks on Coptic churches and institutions in Egypt by Sunni Muslims. According to at least one Egyptian scholar, Samuel Tadros, the attacks are the worst violence against the Coptic church since the 14th century. It was reported that 45 churches across Egypt had been looted and torched, while 23 others had been attacked and heavily damaged. According to the Egyptian NGO Association of Victims of Abduction and Forced Disappearance, between 2011 and March 2014, around 550 Coptic girls have been kidnapped and forced to convert to Islam. According to the same survey, around 40% of the girls were raped prior to their conversion to Islam and married their captors. It is unfortunate that the real natives of Egypt are being persecuted just because they are Christians. We hope things get better for them. Thank you for watching. Please give a big thumbs up to this video and I will see you soon.
Hosanna in the highest, this is the King of Israel. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord of hosts.